Welcome to the channel, everyone. Today I'm in Westmoreland in Kent. Today's going to be a bit of a different video to the ones I've been filming recently. This is a bit of a guided tour of a village, or a town really, as Westmoreland is. A couple of reasons for that. One, I think that Westmoreland's quite an interesting place to look around, but also when I think about what I want this channel to epitomise, it really is Westmoreland. Westmoreland's got a bit of everything. So it's got military history, it's got some interesting stories in the graveyard, it's got an interesting amount of social history. It's also got its share of strange tales and lore. So we're going to cover some of that today. I'm going to give you a guided tour of Westmoreland and we're going to touch on some of the stories. But I will be back and I will cover them in more detail. So join me today as we explore Westmoreland's history, lore and more. So the first place I wanted to bring you was St Leonard's Tower. St Leonard's Tower was built very early on in the Norman occupation of Britain. It's said it was built by Bishop Gandalf, although that is disputed. The thing is about St Leonard's Tower is that we don't really know why it was built, especially why it was built here. We don't really know what it was for. There's ideas that it was here as an administrative centre. There's also ideas that it performed some sort of Christian sort of temple type arrangement, but we don't really know. Perhaps the best story is that it's a staging post for knights or soldiers on their way from one place to the other. But as I say, there's no signs of occupation here, although Westmoreland itself is a very old settlement, possibly dating back to pre-Roman times. You can gain access to St Leonard's Tower. There's full details of how to do that on the English Heritage website. However, it used to be accessible by a large key. Now this was lost for many years. You can see the keyhole here. That key was lost a long time ago. However, it was recovered and sent to the key holder, the current key holder, by post after I think about 30 years. I'll post a link in the comments about that. Manor Country Park gives us our first view of the stream that runs through Westmoreland. This eventually runs into the Medway. It does run from around St Leonard's Tower, and the ground around St Leonard's Tower is very boggy, so you want to bear that in mind if you come on a particularly wet day. This river or stream runs through the country park and forms a rather large lake. So I believe this lake was formed by the people who owned what's known as Douce's Manor. I'll show you that shortly. Douce's Manor has quite a lot of history around it itself, most notably from the Second World War. There's access to what was called the Twitch Inn on certain days of the year. I managed to get access to that and I shall show you some pictures of the insides now. Basically it was used by the pilots of the Battle of Britain during the Second World War. On the ceiling you can see that there are names and initials marked in soot from a candle. I can't remember the exact game that they used to play with that. I'll perhaps put some details on the screen now if I can find them. However, people like Cat's Eyes Cunningham and Douglas Bader have their names on the ceiling somewhere. So you can see Duce's Manor there across the lake and the road. You can quite see why it was chosen as a landscaping feature for the owners of the manor. So this is St Mary the Virgin. This is the parish church of West Malling. There are lots of interesting graves in West Malling Church. There's nobility that are buried here. There are also Commonwealth war graves here. I managed to get inside the other day, and I'm showing some pictures of that now. I want to come back to this site and show you some of the stories and tales around the people buried here. There were some German war graves here as well from the Second World War. Those, I understand, have been moved to another grave site. This is the main high street of West Malling. It was a busy market town and also a coaching town, so there are around 20 pubs in the local area covered by Malling. There were quite a few more pubs in this general area than there are today. I can think of about 6 or 7 pubs that were here. As you can see, it gets very, very busy at times. West Malling used to have its own fire station, the Malling Rural District Fire Service. That used to be where the Tesco's is. This was largely a retained force, i.e. they were all part-time volunteers. So this is the Cascade. This is where the stream comes from St Leonard's Tower, runs down through the Abbey, which this is the grounds of, and comes out here. It was painted by Turner. He also painted or drew the Abbey and St Leonard's Tower itself. So it's said that the railway created West Malling by cutting it in half. It used to be called Town Malling, and there used to be East Malling as well, and because of the railway cutting it in half, this became West Malling because that's what the railway company called it. For those that are into railways, you might notice the concrete of the Southern region or the Southern Railway. Again, that points to the history of this station. At the far end of the station platform, but basically between that railway bridge and the concrete bridge for the Malling bypass, a bomber crashed during the Second World War. I'll hopefully cover that in more detail at a later stage. So this piece of ground, locally known as Banky Meadows, has two stories attached to it. So one of the stories, and perhaps one of the easiest to either disprove or prove, is that this was the site of a burial ground during the Great Plague. So allegedly people were buried in here, and it is quite lumpy and bumpy in places, and you can imagine that there are grave pits here. The other story is that a long time ago, and nobody's quite sure when, there were some tunnels found in West Malling. Now the tunnels are one of the repeated bits of lore in West Malling. It's said that upon discovering these tunnels, a piper or a fiddler or a flute player was sent down the tunnels by a rich landowner to find out where the tunnels went. The tunnels were traced along here, so apparently you could hear the drummer or the piper playing as he was walking along through the tunnels from above ground. And then around Banky Meadows it stopped, and the drummer boy or the piper was never heard of again. So that's an interesting story, and it's interesting as well that there are a number of different places where this story crops up. So I don't know whether it's just a local folk tale, whether it was actually real, because people have said that there are actually tunnels underneath West Malling. Now whether that is the case or whether it is just one of these tall tales, perhaps we'll never know. Either way folks, I hope you've enjoyed that story and the visit to West Malling. I would like to come back. I will like to cover some of these stories in a little bit more detail at some point. However, I just haven't got time at the moment. So I hope you enjoyed those tales of history, lore and more, and I hope you join me again at a later stage. Thanks for watching. If you like what you saw, please like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps everything. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.